The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios. If you're looking to start or upgrade your online presence, visit www.sonicwebstudios.com for all of your online needs. Call 1-800-303-3960 or visit us online at www.sonicwebstudios.com to get started today. Mention The Mike Wagner Show and get 20% off your project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level.
Hi, this is Mia Mohsen-Zia, also known as Mia No Time for Love. Check out my latest book, Missing, Extraordinary Relation of Ordinary People, based upon a real-life relationship, available in print and ebook formats on Amazon. Do read it. I'm sure you'll love it. It's www.miamohsenzia.com and www.amazon.com/Mia Mohsen-Zia.
The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios. If you're looking to start or upgrade your online presence, visit www.sonicwebstudios.com for all of your online needs. Sonic Web Studios specializes in custom web design, app development, social networking, search engine optimization, domain registration, email marketing, online stores, and more. Since our birth, we have been designing and developing immaculate websites and providing web solutions which are a cut above the rest. As a leading web designing enterprise, we have a team of extremely talented web designers who are well-focused and have the experience of working on multiple web developing platforms such as PHP, Magento, Custom WordPress, and more. Sonic Web Studios has been helping businesses of all kinds, whether big, small, established, or startup, impress their audiences with exemplary web solutions. We don't just create beautiful and functional websites. We give you a complete online solution with the main goal of enhancing your yearly revenues. We aim to give your business the online exposure and brand acknowledgement that will help you in achieving increased conversions leading to profitable sales. Call 1-800-303-3960 or visit us online at www.sonicwebstudios.com to get started today. Mention The Mike Wagner Show and get 20% off your project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level.
It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Mike brings you great guests and interesting people from all across the globe. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another great episode of the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, on over 25 podcast platforms, including Amazon and Audible. And take the Mike Wagner Show on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. And back by popular demand, we have a wonderful author who is also award-winning producer at ESPN and the Golf Channel. He's also published 3 books called Big Flies, Cover Me Boys, I'm Going In, and The Flower Girl Murder. And this one we're going to talk about, we're in a serious crisis in this one. It has nothing to do with the pandemic. This is about, it's just so redundant, I have to say this. And how this all ties in, ladies and gentlemen, live from the Plus Studios in beautiful downtown, somewhere in Colorado, ladies and gentlemen, author, award-winning producer of ESPN and Golf Channel, the very, very uber-talented Keith Hirshland. Keith, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us once again.
Well, Mike, thanks for having me back on. I'm thrilled to be with you, and I appreciate you including me in your lineup of always incredible, interesting guests. So thanks for asking me to come back on the show.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, based on our conversation, and I mean, you just had the ultimate ability to become that next best-selling author. Of course, during your time at ESPN, Golf Channel, and amazing broadcast history, you wrote, 3-4 books, Big Flies, Cover Me Boss, I'm Going In, The Flower Girl Murders, and we're going to be talking about your next book as well, which this is kind of a serious crisis, but has nothing to do with what's going on right now. And before we talk about your next book and a little bit of recap, again, quickly tell us how you got started.
Well, in my broadcasting career, I got started in Reno, Nevada. My parents started a TV station there, and once I gave up the hopes and dreams of becoming a professional baseball player or a professional golfer, I decided to explore the next best thing, which was to get into sports television. Like I said, my folks started a TV station. I was lucky enough to convince the news director there, a guy named Ed Pierce, that he should give me a shot as a sports reporter, which he did, and that kind of turned into an almost 40-year career in sports television. I was with local stations and ESPN. I was with ESPN for a number of years in the late 80s, early 90s, and then was hired by Golf Channel in September of 1994. Golf Channel went on the air in January of 1995, and I spent almost 20 years at the All Golf Network, and decided to write a book about it, about my career in television and my career in broadcasting, and a little bit of an homage to my parents, and called that Cover Me Boys, I'm Going In, Tales of the Tube from a Broadcast Brat. Cover Me Boys, I'm Going In was what I used to say to the crew before every broadcast, over the PL, over the microphones that everybody listened in to on the headsets, just to show solidarity and to show that we were all in this together. And figured I enjoyed writing that book so much I'd try fiction, and that's what happened to come about. Big Flies and The Flower Girl Murder, and now Murphy in the Case of Serious Crisis. So it's been quite a ride, I got to tell you.
Well, I have to say, it is quite a ride indeed as well, too. And when you got your first sports assignment, what were your thoughts on that? It was like, were you nervous? We want to go in? We're just like, okay, so what do I do here? I think I forgot to ask you that early, and I thought, what was it like for you getting your first sports assignment? It's like, what's this?
It's funny you ask, because it came about by chance, actually. I was Reno used to be a pretty good place for minor league sports, and they still have a AAA baseball team there. But we had minor league hockey, we had minor league baseball, we had a number of PGA Senior Tour and at the time Nike Tour events come through town. But I was at a hockey game. The team was called the Reno Aces, and I was at a hockey game with a couple of friends, and the sports director from my dad's station showed up with a camera. I went over to him and said hello, and he kind of grumbled about having to be there, and he wished he didn't have to be there. And he'd been the sports director for a number of years in Reno, very popular guy, very good guy. But I just took the initiative and said, well, Joe, I'll shoot the highlights for you. Give me the camera. I'll shoot the film for you. And in those days, this was in the late 70s. We shot everything on Super 8 film and 16 millimeter film. I said, give me the camera. I'll shoot the film of the highlights for you, and I'll bring it back to the station, and you can go have dinner or go spend some time with your bride or do whatever you want to do, and I'll drop the stuff off at the station. And he couldn't have given me that camera fast enough. So it kind of like turned into a little deal between Joe and myself about how he'd let me shoot high school football highlights on Friday night, or the Reno Silver Sox single A baseball games. And I'd always drop the stuff off at the station. I learned how to develop the film and add it to the rundown, and finally kind of got up the courage to go up to Ed Pierce and say, hey, Joe, I know Joe really doesn't want to do the 11 o'clock sports anymore, and why don't you give me a shot at it? And I have to think that my dad owning the station may have had a little bit to do with it, but also, as folks of or sons and daughters of successful people sometimes have to work twice as hard to prove themselves. So I knew it was going to take hard work, and I can't exactly remember the first night on the air, my first sportscast, but I'm sure I was a nervous wreck, and I'll bet I mispronounced about 50 names.
Mispronounced 50 names. I have to say this. It's like, being first time on air myself and speaking for a lot of people, I think I must have lost count, but 50 names, oh my gosh. I think
we were doing hockey. I think it was probably hockey season or something. We were doing hockey highlights, and, it was like, oh my gosh. Anyway, that was 45 years ago. So I have been blessed beyond belief to have an amazing career and to work with some of the greatest people in the business. And I will never, ever, ever be able to thank the folks that helped me along the way enough.
Mm-hmm. And of course, going from Reno and going over to ESPN as well, too, in New Haven, Connecticut. And tell us about that venture, going almost like cross country or coast to coast from Reno over to New Haven.
Yeah, it was. It was quite a deal. And I tell the story in Cover Me Boys, I'm Going In. I was behind the scenes. So I started on camera. I started doing sportscasts, and I started doing that. And then there was a show back in the early 80s called PM Magazine. It was evening magazine in some stations around the country, PM Magazine in Reno, where I was. And it was one of the first kind of what they called magazine shows that was ever put on television. And we had national stories about interesting people, and then there were local hosts in a bunch of cities that went around town and did introductions to those national stories and tied everything together. So I hosted PM Magazine for a couple of years and finally decided that I like being behind the scenes a lot more than I like being in front of the camera. So I started directing and producing. And, again, my dream was to be in sports television. So I thought, what the heck, I'd send a tape of my newscast directing to the folks at ESPN to see if they were interested in hiring a young, hardworking director from Reno, Nevada. And luckily enough, at the time, I thought, there was a gentleman named Dennis Sidori who was running production at ESPN, and he said, come on out. We like your tape. Come on out. We want to do an interview. I went out to ESPN. We chatted. We went through the control room. I sat down. We did kind of a rehearsal show, and he said, I think we want to hire you. And so I was thrilled. I went back to Reno and quit my job. And then the gentleman that ultimately hired me at ESPN in the interim lost his job.
Ooh.
And I got a message basically saying, I know that we kind of offered you a job. There's no contract. There's no nothing. We're kind of going to start from scratch. So you're more than welcome to put your tape in again, and we'll consider you. But as far as we're concerned, we're starting this search over again. Of course, I was devastated. But he did say, listen, I know there's a job open at the local ABC affiliate in New Haven, which is just down the road from ESPN. The guy there, the guy's name is Dennis, and another Dennis, and he said, if you can get that job, it'll be a lot easier for us to find you if we need you, to bring you up from New Haven to Hartford or Bristol, as opposed to moving you all the way across the country from Reno, Nevada. So I ended up getting that job in the news department at WTNH in New Haven, Connecticut, and never ended up getting the job at ESPN until 1989, when I had moved to Los Angeles and got a job with a gentleman, a very famous sports producer, one of the greatest sports minds, television minds in the world, Don Ohlmeyer. He had a production company. His production company hired me in 1989, and to work their golf. They produced all the golf for ESPN, so all the PGA Tour and Senior Tour and LPGA golf for ESPN. He hired me as part of that crew, and about 6 months after I had been working for Ohlmeyer Productions, Don sold that production company to ESPN, and I became an employee of ESPN finally.
Wow. and I can imagine Chris Berman background. Keith Hirshland is going all the way.
I wish I was a big enough, a personality or fly on the wall to have gotten Chris's attention. I was lucky enough to run into him in the hallway a number of times. Never lucky enough to work with him at ESPN, although I did work with Keith Olbermann, Stuart Scott, Susie Kolber, Kenny Mayne, just a litany of folks, Tony Kornheiser, Tony Bruno, the experience working at ESPN was one I will always cherish, and it was an amazing learning experience and an amazing time, and I probably would, there's part of me that thinks I might still be there today. That's how much I loved it and how much I enjoyed it, except for the fact that the opportunity of an all golf network came about in the fall of 1994, and I couldn't resist that.
And we'll talk more about the Golf Channel in just a minute, along with Cover Me Boys, I'm Going In, and more. But first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable, custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on themikewagnershow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, Apple. Also on Amazon and Audible and Anchor FM. Take the Mike Wagner Show on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with author and award-winning producer of the ESPN and the Golf Channel, Keith Hirshland. He's back on the Mike Wagner Show. Talked a little bit, giving a recap about his career starting in Reno, then going to New Haven, Los Angeles, and over to ESPN and merging into the Golf Channel. Let's give a little recap about that, about the Golf Channel before we get into your books as well, too, especially Cover Me Boys, I'm Going In.
Golf Channel was amazing. It was I had started hearing about this project called the Golf Channel probably late summer, early fall of 1994, that people were starting a Golf Channel. And I had spent almost 5 years working through Don Ohlmeyer's company and ESPN, producing golf and around the golf space. And I was getting there were a number of people who were working at ESPN that were getting calls from the folks at the Golf Channel asking them to come for interviews or asking them if they wanted to be a part of this new all golf television network. And my phone wasn't ringing, and I thought, well, I'm getting a little angry about this, because I spent last 5 years, working in the golf space, and I think I'd be a great addition, and I wonder why nobody's calling me, the old "woe is me" thing, Mike.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm gonna club you, man. I'm gonna club you.
But then finally one day my phone rang, and it was a gentleman named Mike Whalen, who was the vice president of production for the Golf Channel, and he had come over from HBO, where he had been a driving force for a number of years at HBO in their boxing their boxing broadcasts and a number of other award-winning areas that HBO Sports was responsible for. And he basically told me, hey, I'm looking for a live tournament producer, and your name came up, and I'm wondering if you're interested. And of course I tried to play it coy and act surprised, but I said, yeah, I'd be interested. And he said, well, why don't you come down to Orlando? We'll do an interview. I'll show you around the offices, and we can have a chat. So I got on a plane, and the first thing I did before that, though, I went to my boss at ESPN, a gentleman named Howard Katz, who is now a big shot at the NFL Network.
Mm-hmm.
And Howard had been Don Ohlmeyer's kind of right-hand man at Ohlmeyer Productions. So I had known Howard from Ohlmeyer. And, I went into Howard and I said, I just want to tell you, I want to be up front here and tell you that I've just got called from a guy at the Golf Channel who wants to interview me for their position of live domestic tournament producer. And Howard, couldn't have been nicer. He said, take the trip, go down there, see what it's all about, and then, keep me posted. So I went down. My interview with Mike happened on the golf course, a golf course in Orlando called Metro West. We played 9 holes of golf.
Mm-hmm.
And during those 9 holes of golf, he kept offering me the job and upping the salary each time I turned it down because, quite frankly, I had a pretty good gig at ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
I was well liked there. I was having a ton of fun producing shows. Felt like I had a future, was going to have a long future at ESPN. And finally, we got to the 9th tee, and Mike was like, here's my final offer. And he made it, and he said, this is my final offer, and I'm going to give you till midnight tonight to give me a yes or no. And it was, for me at the time, just more money than I'd ever thought about making. I mean, nowadays it, wasn't that much, but at the time, and I thought, well, that's just icing on the cake because I really wanted the job because,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get back into golf. I love producing golf. This was an opportunity to build a production team from scratch at a brand new all golf network that involved Arnold Palmer and, some pretty talented folks. So I had decided, even though I didn't tell Mike, I decided that, I was going to take the job. I went back to Connecticut and went in to see Howard again and told him, this is what they offered me. I think I'm going to take it. And he said, I think you're crazy. This is never going to last. This is a flash in the pan idea. There's no way in the world that a network that's devoted 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to golf is ever going to be a success. And I said, well, I'm going to take the chance. And he said, well, good luck to you. And, if it doesn't work out, the door here is always open. And I appreciated that. And so I called Mike back and I said, I'll take the job. Funny thing is, Howard Katz, after saying the door was always open and good luck, didn't speak to me for about 15 years.
Oh, no.
but we finally got together and hashed it out. And one of the things he was mad about, which he told me, and which was completely untrue, was that after I left ESPN, about 5 or 6 more folks left ESPN to go work at the Golf Channel, and he blamed me. He was like, "You're recruiting all my best people," and which I will deny until as long as the day is. But it was a fun story when Howard and I finally got together and decided to bury the hatchet. But anyway, so I was lucky enough to be at the Golf Channel, and it was basically the wild, wild west of television back there. And when we were rehearsing to go on the air, and in late 1994, and after we flipped the switch in January of 1995, for about the next 10 or 12 years, it was the most exciting, fulfilling, wonderful experience that I have ever had in my life. And that was one of the reasons why I decided that I needed to put those stories down in a book. And that's a great deal of Cover Me Boys, I'm Going In is stories about those earliest days at Golf Channel.
Mm-hmm. And certainly Golf Channel is no Mickey Mouse operation in Orlando as well, too. So
I see what you did there.
We'll talk about that book in just a minute, The Kiss of Serious Crisis. But first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com. It's powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition way. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, Apple, as well as Amazon and Audible and more. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with author and award-winning producer of ESPN and the Golf Channel, Keith Hirshland, here on the Mike Wagner Show. Talked a little bit about his illustrious career over at ESPN and the Golf Channel, and also Cover Me Boys, I'm Going In, which is out on every retailer as well, too. But before we talk about having a serious crisis, you also had two books called Big Flies and The Flower Girl Murders, and just quickly tell us about those two.
Yeah, I was so enamored with the process of writing Cover Me Boys, I'm Going In, and I had also retired from Golf Channel shortly after its publication that, I decided that maybe I'd give fiction a try. And when I thought about it, I thought that, I had been telling stories and writing virtually my entire career. I mean, I spent, time writing scripts, writing features, writing the openings of broadcasts, writing the little 30-second informational, we called them bumpers, that go to commercial break about interesting things that happened in all the towns that we visited while we were producing golf tournaments. And so, I thought, well, do I have a full-fledged novel in me? And I thought I'd give it a try. And one of the interesting things that happened to me in my life was that I was in Reno, Nevada, living and just out of high school or in high school when the plane that was supposed to be carrying notorious hijacker D.B. Cooper landed in Reno. He had taken off from the Pacific Northwest, and the plane was demanding that he had demanded $250,000 in cash as a ransom, and demanded that the plane take him to Mexico. They couldn't make it all the way from the Pacific Northwest to Mexico on the fuel they had, so they were going to have to stop in Reno and refuel. So there was this big the news, my dad's TV station, mobilized, and everybody's, oh my God, the DB Cooper plane is coming and it's going to land in Reno to refuel, and let's get the live truck out there and let's cover it. And, all this stuff was happening, and I, in November in the early 70s, and it was exciting. And the plane landed, and DB Cooper was nowhere to be found. He had jumped out of the airplane somewhere over the Pacific Northwest, with $250,000 strapped to his body, and nobody's ever found him. Nobody's ever found, except a little bit of the money, and nobody really knows who he was. So for my first novel, I decided that I would create a character and a story that revolved around a son who, after his father dies, discovers that his father is D.B. Cooper.
Wow.
From clues left in his father's attic and other things, that his father was D.B. Cooper. And while I was doing the research for this, I found in that same time period, there was about a 10-year time period that I looked at, there were 3 other real-life, still unsolved robberies. So I thought, well, heck, why don't I make this Chester David, who was my character, responsible for all 4 of those robberies. So he wasn't just D.B. Cooper, but he was kind of the mastermind of 4 robberies that were never solved. So that was Big Flies. It was that was fun to write, and I learned a lot along the way about how much harder it is to write fiction, to make something up, as opposed to my experience with Cover Me Boys, I'm Going In, which was just telling stories about things that actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it was quite an experience, and again, a huge learning experience, and it was pretty well received, and I got a ton of people that said they liked it. So I said, well, I'm going to keep doing it.
And of course, you proceed with the Flower Girl Murder as well, too, and that was on the edge of your seat. I did read it, and tell us more about that, the Flower Girl Murder.
Yeah, and that's also, I think my modus operandi now is that, and I'm almost positive, I don't know that many authors, but I'm guessing that this is kind of maybe a universal tactic. But I'm not a science fiction kind of guy. I can't make up things out of whole cloth. I wouldn't be good at, writing a story about aliens or things like that, because that's not how my brain works. But I do like taking things that have actually happened in my life and then embellishing on those and creating a fictional narrative around those kinds of things. And Flower Girl Murder was kind of based on an experience my wife and I had while living in Raleigh, North Carolina, with a house that we owned, that we were moving from Raleigh to Los Angeles, and we had to, we were trying to sell the house, and ended up renting it to a young lady who was a law student, but her father was kind of an odd character, an odd duck, and he wanted to buy the house, but he wanted to pay cash. He didn't have any money in the bank. He had all his money tied up in real estate and cash, and needed to sell a few things to get the cash, and wasn't going to go in a bank, and didn't want us to take out a loan, but he kept giving us $10,000 a month, to hold, so we wouldn't sell the house to anybody else. And finally, we read, after we had already moved to Los Angeles, and finally we were just like, we can't keep doing this. You either have to buy this house or your daughter has to move out. And 2 days later, she moved out. We never heard another word from him. And we finally found out later that this family was involved in a number of money laundering, kind of gambling schemes around North Carolina. And so I thought, well, there's a great character for my next mystery. So,
I mean, we can all use 10,000 a month right now. It's like,
right?
Why not ask him?
Right? I know.
Oh my goodness! And that's a Flower Girl Murder. And where can we find Big Flies, Flower Girl Murder, and Cover Me Boys and Going In? Where can we find those?
That you can find them all, and now even Murphy in the Case of Serious Crisis at Amazon, and at BarnesandNoble.com. There's a great resource called IndieBound, IndieBound, that allows you to buy books like mine from your favorite local bookstore. So if you like to support local and your friendly neighborhood bookstore down the street, they can get copies of these books through a site called IndieBound, and you can always go to KeithHirshland.com. All my books are featured there.
And don't tell Jeff Bezos, because if you sell it on Amazon, we'll make him a trillionaire instantly. So do we really support Jeff Bezos? I'm kidding out there. Author, award-winning producer of ESPN and Golf Channel, Keith Hirshland here on the Mike Wagner Show. And we're finally tackling on this serious crisis called Murphy and the Case of Serious Crisis. And let's talk about this and, how you got started with Murphy. And this is just a case of redundancy. I mean, I've been going nuts trying to figure this out, like squirrels just going nuts over this.
Well, I appreciate that. And that was the intent. I finished Flower Girl Murder, wanted to write another book, and wondered if I could have just a little bit of fun, a little tongue in cheek. And again, going back to the things that happened to me personally that I put in books. One of the things that drove me crazy as a producer was when my announcers used bad grammar or said redundant things or, used words like unbelievable or perfect. So I thought, can I write an entire book or mystery story using as many redundant phrases as I can come up with. Phrases like, very unique, unexpected surprise. Like all surprises are unexpected, right? Added bonus or advance warning or 3 a.m. in the morning or free gift. So, all of these redundancies that drive me crazy in life and drove me crazy as a producer. I thought, what if there is a detective who is also driven crazy by these redundant phrases and has to deal with them throughout the course of trying to solve a mystery? And so that's how that came about. And of course, the detective had to be named Murphy Murphy, and who works out of the Department of Redundancy Department, and he just happens to catch a case that involved a rock band called Serious Crisis. So Serious Crisis is the name of a rock and roll band that suddenly finds certain expensive items that belong to the band members missing. And they call in Murphy Murphy to help solve the mystery as to who is taking these items. And along the way, a number of other things go missing, including one of the band members. So there are about 150 redundant phrases in this little mystery, which I had a ton of fun writing, and so far, from everything that I can read and see, is that people are having a heck of a lot of fun reading it.
I had a lot of fun too, and I can imagine Murphy Murphy maybe having a distant cousin called Murphy M. Murphy or Murphy Murphy Murphy, or gets married to his wife, and then she changed the name to Murphy 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 Murphy. So
all of that is possible.
Oh yes, and of course I could also think of some phrases as well too, like spoiler alert, there is a warning involved, and warning, there is a spoiler alert. So oh my gosh. And of course, reading the book as well too, that you had some references like in the a little bit of Golf Channel, a little bit of ESPN, and a little bit of Flower Girl, and whatever else. And I guess there's how many Murphys on, like, was it 32 Murphys, 35, 40, 50, 100? So it's like there are so many Murphys. I think I've just lost count. I'm just going to get a Papa Murphy's and just take it home and count the Murphys while having Papa Murphy's too. So
you are one of the most creative guys I've ever spoken to. That's genius.
You know why? Because you're my inspiration. You're creative as well too. It's like that's why I love having you on as well too. And I think there's also more to Murphy Murphy and the Serious Crisis. As we're here with Keith Hirshland here on the Mike Wagner Show, and of course you encounter Captain David Dud Hill. How do you get the name Dud? I mean, was he really a dud? Was he a one-time firecracker? Or it's like, where do you get this name Dud? I mean, you think about it, it's just like, hey, Dud, or hey, dude, or something.
Yeah, well, see, it's funny because, and I would be very remiss if I didn't thank all the folks that I've known along the way that were kind enough and gracious enough to allow me to use their names in writing not only Murphy Murphy in the Case of Serious Crisis, but all my books. The character names that I come up with, 9 times out of 10 are real people, real friends of mine who I've gone to and asked, hey, do you mind if I use your name as a character in one of my books? So again, don't be surprised if you get a call from me at some point, Mike, and I'm asking you if I can name a character Mike Wagner.
Absolutely. You can use it any time. Of course, send some money now. I'm kidding.
But one of my best friends growing up in Reno was a kid named Dave Hill, and we called him Dud. And so I thought, well, I'm gonna name my chief cop character, Murphy's boss, after my good friend Dave Hill, and he's going to have the nickname Dud, but I had to come up with a reason why he got that nickname, and he happened to, as you'll read in the book, he happened to squash a almost bombing in a mall. He noticed an odd bag in front of a coffee shop, looked in it, saw something that looked like a bomb, dove on top of it, and it turned out that the person that created the device didn't do a very good job. It didn't explode. It was never going to explode. So it was a dud, and that's how Captain Dave Hill became Captain Dud Hill, Dave Dud Hill. So he was a hero because he decided to, sacrifice himself by jumping on this, but it turned out to be a dud anyway. So that's how he became Dud. And, you mentioned Golf Channel. There was a great golf writer in the Orlando area named Marty Kaufman. He's a character in the book. Some of my colleagues that I worked with at Golf Channel are in the book, and a couple guys, if your listeners ever listen to Sirius XM radio on PGA Tour radio on Sirius XM, Brian Katrick and John McGinnis are also characters in the book. So, and again, they have all graciously allowed me to use their names with no promise that their characters are going to be good guys, bad guys, or any kind of remuneration involved at all.
Mm-hmm. I also like the name of the band's manager, Jeff Gucci Goo, and I figured it out right away. It's just like you must have been like wearing Gucci, or you technically go Gucci Gucci Goo.
Yeah, and again, there's a story behind that. He's a gentleman that it was one of my best friends and colleagues at the Golf Channel, and his name is Jeff Gershengorn.
Oh, wow.
And the receptionist at the time at the Golf Channel couldn't say Gershengorn. So whenever Jeff got a phone call, the receptionist would page Jeff Gushigu. So, and it was a kind of a running joke around the halls of the Golf Channel. So I thought, well, this is going to be a character in my book. So Jeff Gershengorn is actually Jeff Gushigu. So it's, you got to come up with things along the way to keep your sanity, Mike.
Yeah, yes, it does. And where can we find Murphy? Where can we find Murphy in the case of serious crisis without people going crazy and having issues?
Yeah, I hope they don't. And I again give a shout out to the team at Beacon Publishing Group, which is my publisher, and you can find it at beaconpublishinggroup.com. You can find it at Amazon. You can find it at keithhirshland.com or any place that sells books. Barnes & Noble, online. They all carry it, and please read it, and I hope you enjoy it.
That sounds great. Once again, we're with author, award-winning producer of ESPN and Golf Channel, Keith Hirshland, here on the Mike Wagner Show. Love to have back on in the future as well, too. You've been absolutely fantastic. Always a joy to talk to. And what can we expect from you in 2021 and beyond, despite the crazy pandemic and having a serious crisis?
Well, we hope to, because my wife is involved in the Olympic movement, so we're hoping that to be in Tokyo. At least she will be. I'm not sure right now whether or not I'll get to go, depending on all the protocols and things like that. And I am currently putting the finishing touches on a sequel to the Flower Girl murder. So Detective Mark Allen has left Raleigh, North Carolina, and moved to Colorado Springs, where he finds a number of things not going up to what he expects to be folks obeying the law. So I'm hoping that the sequel to Flower Girl Murder comes out in 2021. And other than that, we're just going to be trying to stay safe and make sure friends and family are all in a good place.
Sounds very good. Once again, Keith Hirshland, author, award-winning producer of ESPN and the Golf Channel, and also of Murphy and the Kiss of Serious Crisis and more. Keith, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to hearing him again soon. Again, what's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase your books?
KeithHirshland.com, one word, KeithHirshland.com. And the books are all available on Amazon or at beaconpublishinggroup.com. So I appreciate you allowing me to give those folks a shout out. And again, I just want to thank all the friends and colleagues and coworkers that I was lucky enough to work with throughout my 40-year broadcasting career, and all the successes that I've had. wouldn't have been possible without the hard work and dedication of all of them.
Sounds very good. Once again, Keith, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to having you again soon, preferably in 2021 and beyond. And keep us up to date and stay safe. I love chatting with you.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it, and I love chatting with you, too.
The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios. If you're looking to start or upgrade your online presence, visit www.sonicwebstudios.com for all of your online needs. Sonic Web Studios specializes in custom web design, app development, social networking, search engine optimization, domain registration, email marketing, online stores, and more. Since our birth, we have been designing and developing immaculate websites and providing web solutions which are a cut above the rest. As a leading web designing enterprise, we have a team of extremely talented web designers who are well-focused and have the experience of working on multiple web developing platforms such as PHP, Magento, custom WordPress, and more. Sonic Web Studios has been helping businesses of all kinds, whether big, small, established, or startup, impress their audiences with exemplary web solutions. We don't just create beautiful and functional websites. We give you a complete online solution with the main goal of enhancing your yearly revenues. We aim to give your business the online exposure and brand acknowledgement that will help you in achieving increased conversions leading to profitable sales. Call 1-800-303-3960 or visit us online at www.sonicwebstudios.com to get started today. Mention the Mike Wagner Show and get 20% off your project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level.
Thanks for listening to the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and themikewagnershow.com. Please support our program with your donations at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again next time for another great episode of The Mike Wagner Show.